Are you ready to join me in transforming fear to freedom? That's the objective of the show. Are you ready to explore with me and my guests? Are you ready to get into the deep and play? This is where it's at, and that's what it's all about. No medical advice here. Use discernment and decide for yourself if the information is right for you. All views and opinions expressed on this show belong to the individual and are not necessarily shared with the producer of the show. Want more details? Go to letsgetrealchattingwithcatherine.com. Now let's get real and have some fun. Who are we going to explore with today? Come on with me and let's get into the deep.
Well, here we are, back again, fall 2014, 2014, October, and we're coming up to Halloween and Thanksgiving for people in the States. We've already had it here in Canada, and we are in moving into the season of November, the festive season, and all kinds of things. So it's been a while since we sat down and had a chat with Debbi Coleen on video, so I'm really looking forward to today's chat and to explore into the deep. We always go deep. That's why we call it Go Deep or Go Home, because it's fun. It's fun to explore into the deep. It's not something that most people do every day. So I really enjoy having this opportunity to get really into the nitty-gritty with Debbi Coleen. Debbi is the person behind the Starseed Blueprint. She based that on the 5 elements, the Chinese 5-element theory, and then incorporated all of her other areas of expertise and wisdom, the astrology, numerology, tarot. She's really kind of got a really good base on all of these different areas, plus her own intuition and guidance she gets from her guides. So I love it. I love to chat with Debbi. I love it because she is one of the people that I find the most willing to just kind of go where we go. She goes with the flow. She doesn't have to have a script. I never have a script with anybody, so some people like it, some people don't. But Debbi loves it because we really do just in the moment go with what we're inspired to chat about. You know, my intuition has kicked in pretty clearly now, and so I really follow that, and Debbi's really great to help me to see more clearly what I'm picking up on, and as well as share with you what we are seeing, so that you can, take it and do with what you like. Don't take it as gospel. It's our truth that we're exploring. But often when I listen to someone else talk about their insights, it triggers something in me to know more, to go further, to go deeper within myself, to get that kind of insight. So we're going to have some pretty interesting exploration today. I just know it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. You can read more about Debbi on lgrcc.com, of course. You can also, but just go to the guest tab on the top, and you can read people that have profiles. You can read about them there. And then there's also the shows in the archive from previous seasons that you can listen to at your leisure on all kinds of topics. It's not just a metaphysical show. The whole point of Let's Get Real, Chatting with Catherine, was to really get to past our fears about a lot of things that we are sometimes have been considered taboo subjects. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting to know people that we don't know, that we might be afraid of because we don't know them. So I wanted to bring as many different kinds of wisdom, knowledge, experience, things going on the planet, fun things, and people that are stepping into their passion, talk about those things to help to inspire the rest of us that we can do the same thing, getting past our fears, getting to know each other on this planet. We share this big, beautiful planet, and if we don't know each other, then, often we think of things we don't know as kind of the shadows, the places we don't want to go, we don't even want to know about. Don't talk to me about that, But on this show, we talk about those kinds of things, and Debbi Coleen is a fantastic guest to go into that exploration with. So we're going to go deep or go home right now with Debbi Coleen. Thanks for joining us. Please share, like us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share us on Facebook and all your other social media. and visit the website, of course.
So we are sitting today with Debbi Coleen. It's my absolute pleasure once again. It's been a while since we've done a chat, and I apologize right now for my voice because I've been nursing a cold that seems to not want to go away for a little over a month and a half. So if it sounds a little scratchy, well, that's what it is. But I can't go this long without a chat, so it had to happen. And Debbi is so great to join us and share her wisdom with us. So welcome, Debbi. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Catherine. It's great to be back and doing this on video. We haven't done that for a very long time.
We haven't, and it's kind of cool because we're going to be chatting today. Well, as I say, always, we'll go where we go, but we're there's a lot of stuff going on in the planet. October 2014, there is a lot going on. And so I think it'll be fun if we can explore into this kind of tribal mentality, global mentality, all of these kind of social systems that we're all connected to. Like, we're born into them for the most part, and we learn them as children, like, oh, this is how it is on planet Earth. And so I thought it'd be fun. And I know you have some, thoughts on this issue, but I also think it's kind of fun because you are in a new tribe, so to speak. You've moved.
A new old tribe, yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool because for those of you watching who may have been, clients of Debbi's and her husband, Mike Lang, who's also been a guest on the show, who's a wise man in acupressure and Mongolian acupressure and that kind of thing, they moved. So they moved from Vancouver, Langley, White Rock area to Kamloops.
And not a huge move, still in the province, but back to my roots in a way. I went to high school here, and it's been very synchronistic, having the opportunity to work in where I am right now in this Flourish Wellness Center. Kind of got the window back here. You can't see very much, but it's lovely. Great people, and it was the perfect fit for Mike and I. It's an opportunity to kind of start over from scratch and see, the places where we still have a little bit of changes, growth, a little bit of growth. But for the most part, it feels like after that very profound, intense, challenging Mercury retrograde that we've just come out of yesterday, we really have, kind of stepped almost back to where we were.
Well, and it's even, people that are not aware of it, some people are really aware of it, but some people aren't aware of the influence of these kind of Mercury retrograde. I mean, years ago, I never knew where the planets were or anything like that, but I think I was aware of cycles in my life, where you'd have certain things going on, and then it seemed like it went for certain, and then boom, it just seemed to disappear. Yeah. And so what do you, when people ask about that, like, what difference does it make where the planets are?
It makes all the difference because the energy of the planets, the constellations, the stars, the movements of the Earth, they affect our lives, as far as I can see, very completely, or affect or explain, or I don't know what it is.
Influence.
The chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
It influences us very profoundly. And you can notice every Mercury retrograde, this, issues come up. Mercury, of course, is one of the most noticeable ones. It comes around 3 times a year, lasts 3 weeks to a month. And Mercury has a lot to do with our technology. So, boy, we really notice that. But what happens is if anything's not in complete working order, it's going to go down. And we have to take care of it. Anything that's from the past we haven't got caught up with, the cupboards and the closets that need to be tidied up, they are all clamoring, the skeletons start rattling.
Well, I've been hearing about a lot of people, and myself too, feeling that need to purge, to get rid of stuff, to clean up, and I would even say, with my cold,
deal with some of my sorrow that I hadn't dealt with in the past, that, you know, came back to, you know, sometimes you think you've dealt with it, but you really haven't. And so
we deal with things in layers. I don't think we ever, I don't know, I haven't found too many issues in my life that have completely gone away. At some point or other, I cycle back through them and, you know, look at them from a different viewpoint, have a little different dance with them. It's life. You know, we have a certain number of archetypes to deal with, a certain number of issues, situations, focuses that we have planned to take care of in this lifetime. All of them for each of us different, but, you know, the themes are there, the archetypes are there for all of us. And I think right now, this last go-round with Mercury, this has been really, really intensified because we have Aquarius, Uranus, the planet that represents Aquarius, has been retrograde for a longer period, of course, because it's a further out planet. And that is akin to Mercury. It's like the granddaddy of Mercury. And so it just quadruples the effect of it. So you really go deep. We're really going deep, deep, deep into the roots, into past, into the karma, into the genetics, past the conscious mind, deep into the unconscious. So it's a very, very powerful experience, but it's not necessarily one we can put words to. Deep into the mystery. And that, of course, is really intensified because this Scorpio is in, for the most part, I'm the Scorpio. This Mercury is retrograde in Scorpio for the most part. So Scorpio takes us deep into the unconscious automatically this time of the year.
But if we look at these as opportunities, like when this is happening, like what we just went through, it's not something happening to us. It's sort of, it supports us in, because I mean, house cleaning is something we all need to do. If you want to live in a healthy environment, you got to do your house cleaning. So it seems
that's right.
That's
repairing the car. That's something you've got to do. Make sure your computer is cleaned out, updated. You know, free of viruses. Those are things we need to do. So the perfect time is when Mercury goes retrograde.
So
things about transportation, communication, technology, but also relationship. Our relationship with the world around us comes up for review too. So it's you know, Mercury covers a lot.
But like, as opposed to looking at it as this, you know, oh my goodness, this stuff's all coming up and I don't want to, it isn't that, it's that it's there to support us to do it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. You know, some people in their lives have certain periods of the year set aside for spring cleaning,
fall cleaning, Christmas
winter repairs. Yeah. And that's, you know, Mercury retrograde's the perfect time to do that. Our ancestors, you know, perhaps, would plant at certain times of the month to get the most auspicious times for seeds to take root and to, you know, get the growth energies. And that kind of thing, you know, many people find that works really profoundly well for them. It's a way of honoring nature. It's a way of honoring our physical interaction with the planets and the stars, to be fully in our bodies, fully in the physical, to represent the intelligence and the power and the benevolence support of all of the processes that happen to us here on Mother Earth.
Yeah. It's interesting to see it that way, though. I think when you do, you kind of feel empowered. You feel, you don't feel like you're a victim to it, like, oh, Mercury got a retrograde, so now my communications are down. And instead it makes you be more conscious of your communications and
exactly,
you know, all those kinds of things. So I think that's really cool. So,
well, everything works better with gratitude. Everything works better with empowerment. Everything works better when we work with the flow of energy, with what wants to happen. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it makes sense that there's times for taking in, there's times for forging ahead, there's times for slowing down, there's times for cleaning up. That's just how we work at every level. Yeah. And Mercury retrograde is that. And like you say, it's not anything that's bad. It's a wonderful opportunity to take stock, to slow down, to look at what's not complete, to tidy up. And were we able to live more closely with the natural world, we would just do that, because this time of year we just do that. But because our work has this ongoing, people who have a job every day, 5 days a week, they're doing, some people, the same things over and over again. But is that fun? Well, for some people, maybe. Not me.
but they also wouldn't get, sometimes you're not aware of, they're aware of the company's cycles, the company's,
yes,
or the, who they work for, those cycles, but the actual, like you're saying, a lot of our ancestors, and really not that long ago even, there was, the farm, living on the farm, you had to go with the cycle of nature. So everything else would fit with that, the growth, exactly, when to plant, when to reap, and so the housework would happen at the same time. So all those things seem like it was just that we kind of got away from it. But now these kinds of Mercury retrograde and the planetary, like we were talking, solar flares and things like that going on, they are more intense. That's what it seems like. They are more intense now. I
think time has speeded up. Energy movement has speeded up. So we're going through things intensely and quickly. It's like tearing a bandage off. Intense, quick. That's a little bit of a negative kind of connotation.
Well, no, but if you're gonna heal, you gotta change the Band-Aid every so often. Yeah. So you gotta, and it is true. It hurts like the dickens, but it is easier if it happens quickly. Then somebody sat there and pulled on it for, that's awful.
Yes. Getting into the cold water, some people say do it fast.
Yeah.
It's all of those things. It's a and of course, we can use our own preference for that, but things are happening a lot quicker. Things that took 20 years in the past are taking a month or a week, maybe a year, depending on the how many people are involved. It's a very different time. It keeps coming to my attention that we can't judge the present or the future by the past. This is a time for us to start looking for different patterns and different outcomes. A lot of the time there's many aspects of our life that we would love different outcomes. And this is the time when we can move into them quickly and smoothly, if we're willing to just rip the Band-Aid off and move into it. But it doesn't even have to be that, because what's happening with this speeded up energy is everybody is going through those same themes at the same time, even though it may look different in their world. Mm-hmm. My experience of this last month of Mercury retrograde has been people are really working through family issues from their childhood, and some things that I think they brought into this life. There's so many issues that we may have revisited many times in this lifetime, but this is a completion. This is a real stepping back from people's role in their family. And a lot of people's lives are having some rather profound changes, shifts in perspective, ideas about who they are that aren't necessarily who they thought they were. Many of us were given roles and responsibilities, labels from our family, maybe from school, things like that from our past, but now we have become much more whole. So my recognition is that in a lot of cases, families have been considered the whole, like the orange, and then you cut that into pieces, or the pie, and each person has their place in the family, the oldest, the youngest, the middle, the hero, the rebel, the lost child, the clown, whatever. There's any number of archetypes that you can mention. And so within each family, people can have very powerful territories that they're responsible for or irresponsible for.
Yeah.
And different ways. And what happens is life is calling us to transcend that, to become whole in ourselves, to encompass the hero, the rebel, the oldest, youngest, middle, the wife, husband, or, warrior, martyr, whatever role in ourself.
When we are born into our families, the family role, that is given to us usually, or through circumstances. Sometimes it's one thing, but then becomes something else because of circumstances, or someone leaves the family, someone else has to step into that role. But is it, I'm thinking years ago, well, people didn't live as long as we do today, for one thing. And so you'd only have that role if you were the, like they'd have in a family, the oldest boy inherited the family business. So that was what you were going to do, whether you wanted it or not. That was your job. And the rest kind of followed suit accordingly. But now, as we're living longer, I'm thinking that maybe that's part of it. But also, to break free of our role, once, because we get defined as that as like young people. And then in order to have a different role, like a lot of times you hear about people, they go out into the world, they leave the family, they go out into the world, and they become somebody so different that their family, if they saw them in their workplace, they wouldn't recognize them. But as soon as they go home, like we're coming up on American Thanksgiving and the United States Thanksgiving, and there's lots of movies about that people coming home for the holidays and the hell that ensues.
And the triggers that, the buttons that we bring and that are pushed, of course.
And we have to step back into our role.
And especially at this time, we have outgrown a lot of those roles, and we're trying to stuff ourselves back into a little plastic bag that we don't fit into anymore. And we don't realize it because these are not concepts that are discussed that often. I mean, family order, things like that, people pay attention to them as somewhat, but I think we don't recognize how much of our personality is defined by the expectation of the family, by the need of the family to have someone to carry out that role, which is fine when that role is useful, but we need to have all of them at our fingertips. We need to be able to be the hero when heroics are needed. We need to be the rebel when rebellion is needed. We need to be the clown when levity is needed. We have to have a variety of skills. We may have some that are more obvious, more likable for us. And in order to do that, it's very hard in the family, because if people in the family are getting the approval or sometimes the disapproval, but they're given this place where they belong, and you start poaching on their territory, the family repercussions can be very, very difficult. For people who rely on their place in the family to define them, to support them, to comfort them, to have that, to have a sibling or a parent, family group give you disapproval for moving into a bigger role, it's very hard. And what happens is generation after generation, if someone is in a certain role, it's handed on to the next generation and the next generation. So there's a comfort for the older generations, it seems, to recognize the children as following in their footsteps. They're seeing traditions, they're seeing, and we don't have always that many generations alive at one time. It may not be that apparent, but families that tell stories, oh, you're just like your Uncle Joe. You're just like Auntie Mavis, oh, you're just like Bobby.
Yeah. And the thing is, though, I noticed, like in our family, we have strong family stories. And so I was very aware of, seeing if I saw a trait in one child or another that reminded me of an aunt or an uncle or brother or whatever, I would immediately almost, I had to consciously say, whoa, it's a one-time incident. That person is not like that person, or in for good or bad. It's like, we can have traits and they could remind you of somebody else in the moment, but it doesn't mean you are that person. But for children, so often, they, you think, oh, I'm like that. And so you take on, I did that with several of my relatives. I'd be like, oh, well, I'm so much like this grandmother, or I'm
Yes.
like this, you know, and then
Or I'm not like that person.
or
I'm
I'm
very
really
different
not.
from that person. You know, we'll have a sibling who's very opposite to us, and we can have very strong uh, disapproval for how they are. But if they start trying to change out of that, it can be very uncomfortable. You
And
know, the person who's the
that's where I really
scapegoat.
wanted to go about that right there. That
Yes.
change, you know, I've been hearing a lot about that in social media and stuff, when people are talking about everybody's kind of cheerleading other people. Oh, you gotta, you know, you can do it. You can be the change. You can be everybody else's opinion doesn't matter. And it's all fine and good. These are great posters, and they're very inspiring, and they get
Yes.
people thinking. But the truth is, when you come face to face with realizing you're not who your family painted you as, and you
That's right.
decide you want to be who you really are, your genuine, authentic self, you don't necessarily want to break all those relationships. You don't want to end.
Yes.
You don't want to. You still want to love them. You still want to be in their presence. But it's hard to...
It's very hard. Because if you start doing somebody else's role, you're going to do it in your own way, so you're doing it wrong according to them. You know, how many people have an older sibling who taught us how to do something, but we have to learn a different way because we're a different person.
Well, and people will
It's
say,
very hard.
we don't know what to expect from you. Oh, you're
Yes.
just 1 minute you're this and the next minute you're that. And it's like,
Exactly.
you know.
And it takes a very, very functional family to be able to handle that. It takes parents who've gone through those changes themselves. And like you said, you know, people haven't, you know, often in the past perhaps lived long enough to encompass these changes. People are moving far away from their families now, and they might not have in previous generations. You know, all kinds of aspects to it. But and the family system needs the people to function in different ways. However, you know, what happens is the family doesn't realize that if X person stops doing that role, then another person will actually move into that role, expand their role, take on some of those responsibilities, and handle it. And then that person will also have more qualities, more traits, more talents, more skill set. So
the key,
you know,
is
people
to be open, because I mean, I don't want to discourage anybody. I mean, I went through lots of this stuff myself, and I'm sure you have, Debbie, and most people are doing a lot of personal growth work. It's not that if you don't come from a very functional family, don't look at this and say, well, that would never work. If I change, I'm finished. Because I think, you know, it's up to each person individually. But I must say, for me, it's the most worthwhile thing ever to find out who you really are, to step out of some of your roles. And actually, if you think about it, it is a gift, especially if you've been one who had to handle all the family business, or be the peacemaker, or be the whatever it was. You know, if you... It's hard on your ego, because you got to let go. Maybe that's the only thing you ever got praise for. So you've got to let go.
But it goes deeper than that, Catherine, because people, these things are rooted in our deepest survival system, and our survival instinct is our strongest instinct.
Right.
So when we're a tiny baby, you know that stage where the baby starts making strange?
Yeah.
That's the moment that the baby realizes that they could die because they're helpless. And it may not be a conscious thought because their conscious brain isn't fully developed, but it becomes a very powerful unconscious understanding. And if trauma happens in the family, or, you know, parents aren't quite in tune with children, or if, you know, something, you know, if it just really, something really affects the child where they go through a lot of their life with a place of fear, based on that childhood experience of unsafety,
right.
Every time you go to move out of that role that's been assigned you, where you're safe, you're comfortable, you're accepted, anytime you challenge the family's expected process, it could be a trigger to the survival system that can cause all kinds of repercussions. So, you know, if we find that we feel really challenged about taking on roles and responsibilities that one of our siblings might have handled in the past, or an aspect of being that way. Sometimes it's a really good idea to have some kind of therapeutic help to take us through that, recognizing the power of that survival system and our response to it. There's no need for us to go through things alone, fearful and doubtful. It really does help sometimes too to go into a therapeutic relationship, so you can, instead of dealing with it out there in your family, which can cause a lot of ructions for many people, to go through these issues with a person who's trained in some form of energy healing, counseling. There's so many different modalities out there, and they're expressly to help people make this transition at this time. That's why energy healing, counseling, etc., coaching, all these have become so available to us at this time.
I think that's a really important point, is that knowing you don't have to go through it alone, because I can see where different situations, you sort of got a little bit, you're feeling called, you want to step into more, you want to be more, maybe you want to be the one that tells a joke every so often. It could be that simple. And you do it at work. People seem to like your sense of humor, and it's okay, and it's safe, and nobody kills you there. And then you do it at the family dinner, and all of a sudden all eyes are on you, like, whoa, that's not the kind of joke we tell around here, or whatever. But I think it's important to know that.
Well, sometimes life forces us to take on new roles. In our marriages, in our workplace, there's opportunities come up all the time to stretch us. So,
but not always are other people going to support. Like, for instance, if, let's just say, you've been a wife and mother, and you've been caring for a household. Maybe you had a job, maybe you didn't, outside the home, but your husband dies or you get divorced or whatever. Someone in the family may see you've always been taken care of, and so for you to say, all right, well, now I'm in this situation and I'm going to handle my own finances and handle my own life choices and whatever. And you might have a big brother or a father or someone that comes along and says, well, hey, you're not equipped to handle that.
That's right.
So you've got to, and that's why I think it's and they're not doing it to hurt you, but they just they haven't expanded to see that you could possibly do that role, because they only know you in the other role. So where you're talking about, like, I think it's really important to have resources, people that you can talk to, but not just like, I think it's really important to have people that have a little life experience, not just book experience, Debbie. Like, sometimes.
Well, it's these things become very, these life experiences that trigger us to move out of the limitations that we've come to believe about ourselves, or the opportunities that come along to expand us. It's not by chance. We have a plan for this life to become more of who we really are. We have a plan that, the universe is expanding us all the time. So, just like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So it's not like we have to plan these things. We can be open to them. That when these changes come along, it helps so much to know that we have resources that will be there for us. We can look around and find them. One of the things that I've noticed is that as we start changing, the people that have been very different from us, that we have, seen as, not functioning in the way that we are comfortable with functioning, and sometimes those people are in our family with us. All of a sudden, those people start being quite understandable. You get it. They can become your best friends. And so as we expand, our circle of people who we are comfortable with becomes bigger. Sometimes the circle becomes smaller because there's people who can't accept the change we do, and that's, can be painful, but but there are more people, there are more roles, more opportunities, more options, choices that we can expand into, and that creates more opportunities for resources that way.
And so it's I think that's the thing, is if you can be open-minded enough to notice that, change is on the horizon. I haven't played that role before. I've not done that before, or I've not, and be okay with it. And maybe even sometimes you need to say to family members, I know I'm not usually like this, but I'm kind of liking this. I want, and you might get more support in that than saying, yeah, I know, I've never done that before, but I'm doing it, and you guys are,
just, out of my way.
Different posturing. But the other part is, if you've been, as many people my age and my generation and yours, Debbie, is kind of been the in-between generation, where we've had parents to take care of and children to take care of at the same time, and those kinds of things. And often we have taken on those roles for many reasons, but one of them is society. Your parents took care of you, you have to take care of your parents. And so somebody's always delegated to do that role in the family,
that's
right?
True.
But
that's right.
What I notice is that sometimes we take on the role because of that, and we really disempower the parent or the child.
Right. And we can disempower our siblings by assuming they can't do things. We can disempower anyone. Believing in somebody's capability and capacity is a true gift, and that allows the universe to step in and support their capability and capacity. It can give people a whole different view in their life. So when we start thinking, oh my goodness, if I don't step up and take care of my parent, they're going to just die, or that's not necessarily true. That the universe, if we work with the universe and the flow of what wants to happen, if we can use our consciousness, our awakened awareness, and our ability to communicate our changes and our understandings with other people, and our needs, make requests of other people, things can definitely be much easier. Of course, those skills come with practice. So sometimes those are the very skills. Well, and that sometimes is the whole learning process in itself, is that, we may have a role in the family where being communicative, that's not our role. We might be the scapegoat or the rebel, and our job is to, hold the troubled places in the family. So, people might not have an experience of listening to us, but it all comes with practice. And the thing is, we have other people around us who aren't in our first family who can help us to go through roles. We can learn from other people's example.
And also, very often, someone outside the family can see us and mirror for us in a way that our family, sometimes they just can't see us any other way. I mean, it's why you see adults who, still get called pet names by their family. It's like, because they just can't accept that they're anybody different. They're grown up, they're matured, they're an adult. You hear it all the time. Like, people
change is so threatening, and just because, and sometimes when we're changing and recognizing we want to change or need to change, we can be fairly frightened by it ourselves, and then that fear communicates to other people. So if there's a lot of fear around it, that's a good reason to find someone else to support you through it.
Okay, so if you take this because we're talking tribal mentality and global awareness, which we're seeing a lot of things happening on the globe right now.
Yes.
And one of the things I notice is that because we travel so much more, it's easier to travel, it's easier to communicate, via technology, Skype, and so we're
moving out of. We're actually moving out of that tribal mentality, and we're moving into more individual. And that individuality is so supported by technology. We don't need to have so many people working at, we don't need to have so many people working. That's the true thing. We have technology. We have the opportunity to have lives where we can be more self-sufficient, more self-aware, more capable of exploring ourselves. And I mean, we're seeing that all the time. People are exploring themselves in the most amazing ways. And we're having, the rising, we had, Freud was here in the last century. There may be people, I'm not sure my dates on this one, but there may be people who actually remember that time.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though, is in our initial family, we have these are our people, these are our tribe, these are, my extended relatives, and we're very close knit. Like when I was growing up, my parents' family, their first family, was pretty strong. It was, and so we were part of that. And then as we moved away, and then others moved away, and the connections, yes, we're still connected, and we feel a connection to these people. We don't know them that well. They're not that distant relatives, but yet they are. But at the same time, it seems like we're expanding beyond our, like my ancestry, I'm pretty mixed, my dad was Irish, but, his parents, and Canada has been our home and for many generations. So, and then my mom's side, it was, Polish, English, Irish, Scottish. So here I am. And then, so what I'm thinking is that our tribe has become global. So I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but it's like the individual is now being supported, but supported in a global tribe.
That's right. We've gotten to know so much around the world that we're much more comfortable than we were in past times. I remember when my dad's generation, to marry outside your religion was bad.
Yeah.
It's not even, to marry outside one's culture now is difficult. Maybe in the future it'll be marrying outside your race.
Well,
I'm just joking there.
Your species, you mean? Well,
your species, yes.
Yeah, but I don't think it's not shocking for people of different ethnic backgrounds to marry anymore. It's not shocking to.
No, people are certainly not ostracized for it.
There is still people who have their prejudices, but like generally, there's no taboos on that stuff anymore. We started.
Well, it's very mixed. It is one of those things that people treat as different, strange, where people being married from different, say, Christian religions. In my mother's generation, for someone from even one of the Protestant religions to marry a different that was cause for a bit of difficulty.
Yeah.
And then it became okay for Christian Catholic, and it's become okay Christian Judaic. But it's still, it's not all that common. It's certainly not frowned on. But being married to a Chinese man, people don't assume that we're together. If we walk into a store separately, people do not assume we're together.
No, but at the same time, it's not like, I just feel like we are. I'm not saying there aren't individual families or individual societies that might object to blah, blah, blah. But the masses, it feels to me.
In Canada, we have enough, of the intercultural relationships that it's not stared at. What we get now, legally, we have same gender relationships that people are raising their eyebrows at. So
to some extent, but even that is starting to. I think people are starting to get like, different strokes, different folks. Like, let people live their lives, live and let live. It feels like there's a lot more of it, even though I get it. Not some people are saying it, don't really feel it yet, but we're on that road, and it just feels like.
And that's just how the universe expands. That's how we become more of who we are. We accept more possibilities, more kinds of, choices. It's like, when you and I were young, you went into a cafe, you could have coffee, You could have coffee with cream. You could have coffee with sugar, coffee with cream and sugar.
Yeah, that's right.
Now you go to Starbucks, and you still can have black sugar, cream, but there are many more choices. And that's my favorite analogy for how the world is now. As we expand, as we get more comfortable, more capable of dealing with, more capable of choosing from a wide variety of sources. I was just telling someone today that I'm keeping track of my friends from Vancouver area by texting, by telephoning, by email, by Skype. We have so many different opportunities to be to communicate. It doesn't mean we change from one to another. Mm-hmm. We have a multitude of variety, and that's what's going to keep growing, because as we evolve, and we have just stepped through a huge evolutionary doorway. So this means that in everything, we don't give up our first family. We don't give that up. We add to. We have more choices of who we want to be when we grow up. We have more choices of where we want to move to. We have more choices of being filled, being adept at more behaviors, different skill sets.
And we don't have to be typecast in a specific role that we were given.
And that's exactly what we're leaving, is that typecasting that has kind of followed us throughout. Many people have been typecast in their family. And now it's not that we're not going to have that role anymore. It's just we're going to be more comfortable being more roles. It's going to be less restrictive within families, because guess what? Families are going to be more comfortable with themselves. As we've moved into the fifth dimension, which we have, it's a very balanced place. And in a balanced place, people feel more balanced. Our survival needs are met more easily. We can, grow up feeling safe and secure, and we can become more self-actualized. We can become more of who we really are. We can bring more of us through because we have more energetic space to download more of our higher self, more of our divinity. We can have more skills. People are already talking about how to go into other levels of Earths, other dimensions, and meet up with parts of ourselves in them and bring back, skills like piano playing over a weekend, learning to play piano, being an artist. And that is going to free us up from a lot of labels. It's going to take us into a realm where it's not linear. It's multidimensional who we can be.
This and that.
Yes. And that and more and more and more.
Yeah, and it kind of makes me think about evolution because it did go on for quite a number of years, the sense of culture, religion, and usually religion and culture fit with the same regions of where they lived on the planet. Yes. Like, this was your tribe. You're Irish, Catholic, blah, 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 from here.
Or all the combinations thereof.
Yeah, but they were, it was, and then that, like you say, you didn't marry outside of the tribe, or you didn't, But that's now, right. It seems like, and it makes me think that at that time, it may have been necessary. Maybe that was there was a purpose for it. And then now there's a purpose for this expansion, because otherwise it went on for years. Nobody ever did it. Like, or very seldom was anybody step outside of that. And now...
Well, the planet was small. Mm-hmm. The planet, our place on the planet was small. We lived in neighborhoods, and many people never left them. It's really in the last 100 years, I believe, that people have become so freely mixing around the world. People choose to leave their country and live in other countries in large numbers. We were encouraged to learn more cultural traits. I mean, food. Holy cow.
That's a good one to bring people to the table, as they so to speak, literally, right? I mean, that when you think about like North America, that's one of probably the best ways where people have come to that place of being willing to talk to someone of a different culture or nationality. You want to talk to the cook in that restaurant? that makes that
That's
delicious food, and it's a barrier that gets crossed, and you go,
Exactly.
gosh, they put their pants on the same way I do. Hey, that's cool.
If they wear pants, yes.
Or whatever,
That's right.
Exactly.
Yes.
I want
am I going to wear my chador today? Am I going to wear my sari today?
Exactly. And you can wear it without being of any, it's just a style. It's no different than, So I love that. And I love the fact that, that's part of where Let's Get Real Chatting with Catherine came from, was let's get to know each other. We get to know things. It's like looking underneath the bed. It's not so scary if you look underneath, It's not so scary to look in the shadows. Once you do, you find out people are people. And I really think that's going to be what's going to end war, is because nobody wants to kill people they know and love. Yes,
that's right. That's that whole aspect of the love that the Greeks have taught us, the agape, where we greet people as our brother, as our neighbor, as someone who's beloved. We treat people the way that divinity treats us as the beloved, and that is actually how we're what we're moving into. That's known as the golden age, when we. Peace comes because we have no need to batter people's choices.
And that takes us to the next kind of part of this conversation that I'm talking about, abundance. When you get it, that, and you said this to me many times, but that because for me it was a bit of a thing I often had a hard time receiving, because it was like, well, I always thought somebody else probably needed it more than I did, and probably said no to the universe enough times that the universe started going, well, she don't want any what we're giving. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? But I get it, that somewhere in my, either this lifetime or another lifetime or my upbringing, it was like, there isn't enough for everyone. Maybe growing up with 5 kids, and we didn't have a lot of money, and it's like, there isn't enough for everyone. So, I won't have. Well,
that's because our whole economic system has been artificially taught to us, because it's been artificially handled so that all the excess has gone to, a certain portion of the population, and we haven't been taught about the exponential aspect of nature. And yet, if we look at nature and you look at a tree, every year it grows more branches, that each branch has more leaves. I've talked about this before. But it's true that if we look at nature, how many times do we curse how we have to weed the garden? Yeah. How many times do we have to go, I have to cut the lawn again?
Yeah, and it keeps growing.
It does, and it doesn't just grow one piece by one piece. Each piece multiplies and divides like the cells in our body as we grow. Mm-hmm. Everything grows exponentially. And when we understand that exponential growth, we start understanding how there is enough for everyone. Number one, because not everybody wants the same thing. Mm-hmm. Number two, because we don't have those huge needs that we've been taught that we have. Mm-hmm. And number three, we have the capacity to create in each moment. We have templates that we can create. If you want a new chair, you can imagine that new chair, and by gum, you can almost always experience seeing that chair being created somewhere in your price range. Mm-hmm. Because that's how nature works with us.
Yeah, and it's not, and I just think that's just such a key, is to really get it. It's not that in order for me to have something, and we, even a lot of spiritual people will say, why do you have to live in that expensive house? Because if you didn't live in that expensive house, you could feed all these people. Well, that's not really true, because there's a disconnect there. Obviously, there's an abundance.
Well, there's many layers of that. Yeah. It's like, what I want, everybody must want. Yeah. And that isn't true.
No.
And, our needs are never-endingly growing, and that's not true either. No. And that we're somehow doing something wrong by manifesting in the physical and using up physical resources, all of these assumptions. And it's true that we've, harmed the planet because we are using we're using ways of creating what we want in ways, from resources that are not really the right ones, and the petrochemical industry is a perfect example. Everyone knows that one. Why are we driving cars that are, powered by gasoline when we have so many non-renewable resources that, yes, we'd be like, we're told that, that will never work. But, in our heart of hearts, we know that's not true.
You mean renewable?
That's not renewable, yes.
Renewable. Yeah, it's funny because
Right.
I did a show just not too long ago with Doug from the Mystery School in Saskatchewan, Doug DeLong. And one of the things that he said, which was exactly resonated with what I thought, was that I guess he'd had an experience of going to the other side. And one of the things that he got to understand was, because I said that about Tesla. And he said, well, because Nikola Tesla was all about free energy, and that was supposed to happen. Our whole dependency on fossil fuels was never supposed to happen. That wasn't the grand plan.
Well, there's many other dimensions of Earth,
that don't
most of the other ones that don't depend on fossil fuels. It's just us. We're in the hard place, we're in the hell.
But it's when people give it a chance to really expand and think about it, because you hear people, especially people who are invested, they're making their money from these industries, and I understand that. That's fine. But if there is something better, and we do delve into it, you'll be getting your job in another way, or maybe you won't have to work. Because that's the whole. Don't
that's
be
happened
afraid.
Throughout time, people have to be retrained, or and it makes your life so much better to find something that's better
that
off.
Maybe was really better for you and better for your family, and that's the thing is, though, we do. It's kind of human nature. We as a whole, I say, collectively, we tend to fear change. And so a lot of people are hanging on, those people talking about non-renewable resources, and renewable resources are full of it. You wouldn't be able to get that much energy out of this and that, but there's so many ways. I mean, even if we did a small number of them, we'd be making an impact. I mean,
that's true. Where was I hearing there are these people somewhere in Europe? It was David Suzuki talking about people just going off, adding to the grid. They're having solar panels. They're actually selling their energy to the local communities.
Cool. So cool.
It's individuals.
So cool. Yeah, it is
so
cool.
It's amazing. But that's exactly the prototype of the kind of being that we're evolving into. A being who decides that against all, we have this certainty inside us. I can use this. I can use solar panels. Why don't I? So we go ahead and we use them. And by gum, after a few years, we start, having an excess. So I guess I can sell this. And that kind of grassroots individual experience is what we are growing into.
Awesome.
That place where we feel safe, and where we can have the acceptance, and where we have that profound need. So this is what's going to change the earth, is each person having their own transcending experience of what can I be that's more than I ever thought I could be. That's where we transcend the tribal, where we work together in groups. It doesn't mean we're not going to work together in groups and tribes anymore. It means that on top of that, we also have many individual opportunities to make more energy and sell it to the community.
I love it. And that, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up this segment, Debbie. And I know we're going to explore more, but I wanted to just sort of try to keep it as tight as we can, so that people can really get their head around it, because some of these things that we're talking about are a little bit expansive, and I know it does take time, and that's why I say we do it. We don't have collectively, we don't have these go deep, go or go home type of conversations. So Debbie and I are having it kind of virtually for the rest of you to join in, and I encourage you to comment, email us, go to our Facebook pages, and connect with us to tell us what you think and where else you would like to go. So,
well, and just one more thought, yes, is that what is a really powerful understanding that we haven't really been exposed to is to see ourselves as a cause rather than an effect. Because when we see ourselves as an effect, that's when we feel there's not enough to go around. But when we are at cause in our life, when we understand that we are making choices that set new possibilities into process, that just by changing our minds, changing how we see each other, changing how we see ourselves, we become an effect that causes some other unknown, unusual, and heretofore unthought of possibilities to open up in this world. That's who we are. We are cause. We are not the effect. So that's our empowerment of knowing that, not that we're to blame for anything, not that we cause things, bad things, or even good things to happen, but we are at cause. And we're part of, when we start working from our individual grassroots empowered places, and we start working, we start gathering ourselves into perhaps global groups that are called by what wants to happen to make our contribution, our unique, natural, innate contribution in our own powerful way that adds to something that gets something really big rolling. And we cause something, we cause a change on the planet. And when we see ourselves that way, it might be a little frightening, but it's also the truth of who we are. We're the adventurers here. We're the explorers. We're the inventors here. And that's what we really came here to do. And that time of being the effect is over. That was the Piscean age. And we're now as close to being in the Aquarian age as can be. And here we are starting to face all the choices that we have. And if we face them as people who are choosers, people who are adventurers and explorers, we can see ourselves in a different way than being a member of the rat race.
Yes, exactly. And that's going to make all the difference. It really does have to do with how we see ourselves and what's possible. So I like that, seeing what wants to happen. And so I really appreciate you being with us today, Debbi. This is, as always, deep and delicious. And I look forward to us chatting again very soon. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. Always a pleasure.
You're welcome. And for the rest of you, check out the lgrcc.com website. Check out Debbi's page there. Check out the previous shows. You can listen to them in the archives at your leisure. And please don't hesitate to connect with us and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear more of. Until next time, take care.
Wasn't that amazing? Thank you to my guests for sharing with us today. Thank you for watching. Feel free to share the link. You can join us for live shows by going to letsgetrealchattingwithcatherine.com and listen to the replays from the show page, preview guests, and explore links to our Facebook fan page, WordPress blog, and more. We are creating an exquisite world. Until next time, take care.